Hello and welcome to this week's bonus episode. Another bonus you're getting here since Sean came back from tour. The amount of bonus episodes you're getting is unbelievable. But another bonus episode this week with Conor Quinn, who's a professional boxer who has a remarkable story. Something that blew my mind a couple of weeks, probably about a month ago, was it? You were on the news. I seen him on UTV live, and it was just brilliant. And then it was actually ended up coming around. Was that his fight 2 weeks ago? Was that 3 weeks ago? I was ringside and I had the absolute pleasure of watching him. And then I looked behind me and there's a guy shouting and howling. No, it wasn't abuse, but constructive criticism towards Conor. And it so happened to be Donald McNally, who was on our podcast, who is actually Conor's brother-in-law. So it's all one big small word. So this is this week's bonus episode, and it's proudly brought to you again by Conlan Boxing, which Conor is on their undercard on Saturday night at the SSC Arena in the Odyssey. The Jamie and Mick, thanks so much again for your continued support. It's greatly appreciated. It's great having sponsors every week, different people helping you out and supporting you, and it's great that Mick has become a very good friend of Let's Face It, and he loves what we're doing, and he has agreed to come along to and be one of our guests at our live podcast on the 12th of January in the Culturan, which the link will be below. So we're really buzzing about that. There's only a couple of tickets left, folks, so get on to it, which is going to be a great night. We'll have Stephen Floyd, who actually works with most of the boxers around performance, nutrition and stuff like that. He's also been in the Premier League. He's been going to give a talk on how nutrition has how nutrition has an impact on our mental and physical and I suppose emotional well-being. And then we're going to have Kieran May, who talks around visualisation, goal setting and stuff like that. And in the second half we'll have Annette Kelly from Little Penny Thoughts, we'll have Mick Conlan, as I just said there, we'll have Neil McManus, who is an Antrim hurler, and we'll have Conor Mailer, who's a Tyrone footballer, all there for a live podcast and discussion. And it was just actually finishing off the designs for the new Let's Face It self-reflection books and stuff that you'll all be getting on that evening. So no, it's going to be great. There's only a couple of tickets left, so Sean will throw the link in below and we'll get on to that. But again, a massive thanks to the Conlans and Conlan Boxing for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. And Conor, what's the crack?
All good, mate.
All good. I just touched on it there, like, about when I seen you in the news, and to be totally honest with you, I'm not that much. Well, actually, do you know what? I say this to all the boxers come on, but like, I'm not even a boxing man. But see now, starting today, I'm going to say I'm a boxing man. Yeah. Because I have that many conversation with you, and it's great. And I find it so, and I'm actually going to your fights and all now, and I think it's fucking class what you're doing. I think it's amazing, and the stuff that, you know, the dedication you put into your craft is class. But I only came across you whenever I did see you on the news, and I didn't know you had anything to do with Donald and all. But what I did hear after that is that the talent that you have and the ability that you have, and you know, people are saying that you're going to be the next big thing and stuff like that. But I was like, you know what, I need to get chatting to this lad, like, because I'm all about people coming over obstacles, and you were through with a couple of cards there. You're over in Australia, boxing was going pretty well. You were already a professional, pro, yeah. And you know, things were relatively going sweet for you, and then you were hit with a bit of a setback, which we'll talk about in a while. But in terms of, you know, you're still a young lad, you're 24 years of age, like, you call this podcast "This Is My Journey With," so I might as well talk about the journey, and I suppose these obstacles are part of the journey, which we'll get into. But just tell me a wee bit more, I suppose, where you came from and who you came from. And
who I came from, my man, that. No, that's exactly it, mate. I am professional boxer now, but obviously you start from the bottom. I started in the Conlan Boxing Club when I was 6 years old. Paddy Graham Senior, Peter Graham.
Who I know very well, Paddy Graham.
Do you know Paddy Graham very well?
Yeah.
Paddy Graham Junior, would that be, or senior?
Maybe junior. Yeah. What age would he be in his 40s?
No, well, senior's a bit older. That's junior. The GA man. St John's man.
Yeah.
Is it St John's?
St John's, yeah, that's my club too.
So that's where I started, mate. I actually remember one of my friends in school, they told me they were in the boxing and they loved boxing. I was only 6 years old. He told me he was going to Clonard, and I went, and he wasn't there, like, you know what I mean? And then I just fell in love with it, mate. I remember going when I was 5. My daddy brought me around, and they said you had to be 7 to join. And I came back around when I was 6, and they let me in there, and I said it was happy days, and just took it from there, like.
Class, unreal. What school did you go to?
So as a primary school, I went to St Clair's,
right.
St Gall's first, and then changed to St Clair's, and then St Malachy's then as a secondary school.
So you were quite academic?
At the time, I was, when I was about maybe 11, 12, 13, I sort of was, and then once I realised that I wanted to go down the boxing route, I sort of still passed all my GCSEs, and my A levels and stuff like that. No, I stayed right to the end, but I had never any intentions of going any further than that. Like, so once I was old enough to sort of decide, like, I wanted to give boxing a good run. Like, it, even the teachers in the school they let me, you know, put school on the back burner a wee bit, as long as I was still getting my grades and doing decent. Like, you know, it was a good school, so they wouldn't have let you away with much. But like, if I was maybe getting B's and C's, they were happy enough. Whereas some other people, you were getting A's and they weren't happy. They wanted A stars and all that way.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think even, you know, on reflection, talking to Paddy McCrory, McConlan, Kevin Ojarko, like these people at some point within their sort of amateur career, some point within their childhood, they realised that I could actually make a go at this. I could actually be successful. I could actually make a career out of this. Can you remember any sort of point or any sort of
I can always remember
victory, or even, or do you know?
Like when I was younger, see, because I was so young and I was doing it, like I was tiny, mate. You see photos of Conlan Boxing Club, they're all maybe 11. You have to be 11 now to join a boxing club, but they're all maybe 10, 11.
Yeah.
And up, like, no, right up to like senior level, like, and you'd see me in the photos, and I was just absolutely tiny. Like, no, I was 6 years old. I actually seen a program there. My first fight was in the St Gall's GAC, and I was 21 kilos fighting. Do you know what I mean? So you imagine 21, like my nephew.
It's about the weight of my hand.
I know, like my nephew Donard's son, obviously, and he's 3, and he's probably near that weight. Like, do you know what I mean? So, but see, because I was that young, everyone was always pointing me out, saying like, he's gonna do this, gonna do that, like. No good, like I was only 6 years old, but because I loved it, like I showed up every night and that's all I wanted to do was train and box. And then, like I said, Paddy Graham Senior, he always says to me, he says like, you'll be Irish champion and you'll be world champion, and at the time you don't know what that means, you know, so you're just thinking, oh, that's brilliant, you know what I mean? I can't wait, like, and that's when I was 6 years old, right up, and like I remember I used to go down, so to have your first actual boxing fight you have to be 11, but you could do wee exhibitions, like, and I had like 150 exhibitions before I even had my first fight. So you're fighting kids who were maybe having their first fight, and it was like, I've already had 150. So I used to go down and watch the All Ireland stuff when I was 10 and 9 and say like, oh, I can't wait to come down here and give it a crack. And then like, but I had, like, obviously at the time you're hearing all this, you don't know what maybe you get paid for it, like, do you know what I mean? So maybe once I was about 14, 15, I sort of realised like I was on the Irish team then, and I was going to different international tournaments, and you were getting wee grants and funding and stuff, and you were hearing about like the actual elites on the Irish team, the senior guys, and they were getting a full-time wage and stuff. So it was quite early on, like I realised like it's sort of what I want to do and what I want to have a go at, like. Yeah,
and you mentioned the amateurs, like what did your amateur career look like in terms of success?
So I had a decent amateur career, like so I had maybe around actual fights, maybe around 150,
right,
and only lost maybe 20 odd times, like, so I won 7 national titles, All Ireland titles, and all the Ulsters, Antrims, I was winning them every year without fail, like, you know. I had a good amateur background, but once I was, so you used to be able to go elite or senior when you were like 17, but when I got to that age, they changed it to 19, so I only had maybe 1 or 2 years as an elite, but that whole time was spent on the Irish team. You know, I was full time with them and I was going to all the different tournaments, the Europeans, the Chemistry Cup and stuff, you know, all stuff like that. So I racked up all the experience and then decided then to move on, like, you know.
Yeah, but and then even like throughout that period, and I spoke to Mick about this too, about like you grew up 2 streets away from Mick, isn't that right? And I spoke about it a lot, I suppose, within my podcast, in terms of West Belfast and the Falls and Andytown. Like, we done a study in Upper Sixth one time, and it came back, or whatever the research was, that West Belfast or these areas were one of the most depraved in Europe. And you think about from like, so I live facing Casement there to where you live.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of pubs, the amount of bookies, the amount of things, obstacles, if you like, along the way, and then you compare it with the Lisburn Road. There's you know, there's hardly anything, and it's sort of, I always would say about you become a product of your environment. So the product of the environment that we grew up in, you know, nearly turned me into the way I turned into, in terms of being in rehab, in terms of the childhood that I had and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So so very much like that is the norm. So it's very, very seldom you get people who actually step out of that and say, do you know what, I'm not going to be a product of the environment. I'm going to put myself into a boxing club, and I'm going to use that as my discipline. I'm going to use that to keep myself off the streets. I'm going to use that to become something great. But was there any sort of like, because young lads can be easily swayed through peer pressure and through, you know, if I don't do this, then I won't fit into a friend group. If I don't do that, do you know what I mean? So was there any sort of difficulties or any hiccups along the way where you maybe nearly get dragged or pulled away from what the actual main goal was, or did you always sort of tunnel vision? Or?
No, mate, there wasn't, to be honest, and no, that's a bit boring.
No,
it's
not because it actually, whenever people say that to me, it actually it makes me admire you even more in terms of your goal, in terms of what you wanted. So it's actually amazing.
Well, see, to be honest, mate, like, see, my friend group that since I was 5 or 6, in school, like, we've all been, the same group of friends, like, same group of best mates growing up. And within that friend group, you would know some of yourself, like Garrett Smiley and Paddy McCrory, and like, we all sort of, Jared French and all, like, we all were really focused on, like, we were boxing at the time, and obviously Garrett's Muay Thai, Paddy's MMA and but he was boxing then as well, a big part of that, like, so we were all sort of doing the same thing, like, we used to just literally go train, we all went to different boxing gyms and stuff, like me and Jared was in the same one, but a lot of us went to different ones, and go do our training and then just meet up after and just take it down there in the streets. Like, no, we were never really, like, so I had good sort of support that way, because we're all doing the same thing. Like, there was one night, we actually, me, my friend Jared French, and big Chris McCluskey, he doesn't compete anymore, like, but the three of us, we were all, like, best of friends, like, we just stood around the streets day in, day out, and then the same day we all won the All-Ireland Boxing Championships, which was a big deal back then, like, having 3 people from the one area, and we were 3 best mates, and all our other friends were there watching you, so we all sort of had the same sort of path, and people maybe aren't doing it now, some of them still are, but we never really had any peer pressure or anything like that, like, to be honest, you know.
And, like, it sort of backs up my point then, because you become a product of your environment. Your environment was then people who actually wanted to train and do well and stuff like that, and it's very often I say about sticking with the winners.
That's right.
It took me a long time to figure this out, but you have obviously subconsciously somewhere in your head went, this is good for me to actually spend time with these people because they want to do well.
That's right.
And it's so important, because it's very often we can't do these things on our own.
Exactly.
Like, you can't be like people say it takes a lifetime to become an overnight success.
Yeah, that's right.
And it does, like, do you know what I mean, in terms of what we do on a daily basis, in terms of, and a big part of that is who we spend our time with. But even moving on, I suppose you then finished your amateur career, you went to Australia, became an amateur, you had 2 fights there.
Yeah, well,
and then madness comes.
So that's what. So my whole boxing career, I never had any injuries, nothing. I had a broken nose, surgery on my nose once when I was young, and then I had nothing ever, and which is unheard of. You know, normally people's breaking hands. And then what happened when I was on the Irish team, in a good position to go to the Olympic qualifiers, like, I think maybe 6 months before, I broke my hand and had to get surgery on my hand, and then from there I just sort of said, I can't really be annoyed. I used to live in Dublin 5 days a week, and you were away from your family, your friends, your girlfriend and all, and this isn't really for me. So I decided then to go out to Australia, had 2 pro fights there, one in Thailand actually, one in Australia, one in Thailand. COVID set in, and then me and my girlfriend decided to come home, and I come home on the Monday, and I remember saying to my manager at the time, my manager now, sorry, I'd only signed with him at the time, and I says to him, like, he says, what do you want? Like, you know, I said, I just want to be active, I want to fight all the time, like, and he says, right, but everyone knows he's the man for that, like, no, look at he's had me 3 fights here in 12 weeks, like, but I says, I wanna fight all the time. He says, right, and he had a fight penciled in for me in March, but I come home on the 10th of December, and he had one in March in Belfast, which I was happy enough with. I thought that was pretty soon after coming home, like, and I remember he was doing an interview and I was watching him, and I was listening, and they says to him, so Conor will be out in March, and he says, no, he's actually out on Friday here in Belgium. And this was on the Monday, on Saturday in Belgium, sorry, this was on the Monday, and he looked at me as he was doing it, he says, is that alright? I said, that's brilliant, like, this was on the Monday, I thought I was fighting on the Saturday. I remember it was my friend Paddy McCrory, it's his birthday, on like the Tuesday or the Wednesday, and we all went out for something to eat, and I was telling him, right, I'm fighting here and all, and we're buzzing, and then I went through the medical process, which you do over here, you didn't do in Australia. Okay. So you done a medical in Australia to get your professional license, but it was quite simple. It was just sort of, you see a doctor, he talks to you, and basically just, you sure this is what you want to do and stuff like that, and blood pressure, all that there, and that was grand. And then I came home and I knew that the process here was a bit different. And the main difference being you do an MRI on your brain, which is good that they do that.
I was going to say, by the way, it's really important. Yeah.
It is. It is important, but it's just sort of, it's always plain sailing. You do the MRI and that's it. You're good to go. And I thought the same. And then I think I done the MRI on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, and the next day Mark had rang me then and says no, you're definitely not boxing at the weekend. He says, but you're going to have to go and see a doctor tomorrow. And I didn't know what was going on, like this was like, I remember at 8 o'clock at night I was driving up to my girlfriend's house and he was ringing me, but I had no signal on the way up, and she was saying I knew there was something up. I thought he was going to ring me and say maybe the fight got cancelled, because I was down for a Chinese, and I remember saying, like, if this fight's cancelled, I'm getting the Chinese on the way up the road, you know what I mean? And she was saying, just wait till you get up, and I says, right, I'll wait. And I was getting in, I was sort of half going, right, either I'm fighting or I'm getting the Chinese, either or, like, it's
win-win.
It's not the worst case scenario, like, you know what I mean? And I remember getting in, and he rang me and he said, are you on your own? And I said, no, I'm with Jessica's family and all. And he says, just go upstairs. And I said, something's really up here, like. So I went up the stairs, and he says something's get back in your brain scan. He says, but it's quite serious. He says, you're going to have to go. He paid for me to see the top specialist the next day. So I said, right, this is what's going on here. I just remember then Jessica come up, and I was obviously, as you can imagine, I was freaking out, like, do you know what I mean? I was thinking, obviously it was bad enough, but I was thinking something real serious, like. And so the next day then I went and seen the doctor, and he had said basically they'd found on my brain scan that the scar tissue was showing that I had taken a stroke at some point, and from there he says, like, you're never going to be boxing again, like, you know. So I remember thinking, why? Like, no, the way I thought about it was, like, even if this has happened, why can I not box, you know? And what he was sort of saying was, this could have came from a boxing fight, came from a punch, came from anything, and they're not going to sign off and let you box again when they found this, because it's easier for them just to say no, like, you can't box no more, rather than say, right, we'll take the chance and maybe something happen again. But
how are you feeling at that point, Conor?
Jeez, mate, see, to be honest, it was crazy, like, but I just didn't believe it either, you know, thankfully, because if I had took it all in, I probably would have, you know, like, your hair would have been all over the place, but I didn't believe it. I just sort of, I thought, I just don't think this is true. This was on the 13th of December. I remember thinking, like, this isn't the case. I was still thinking I'd be fighting at the weekend, and then obviously this guy sat down and he was explaining to me, and I was saying, right, but then what happened there then was, he had a look then at the scans and stuff, and he'd done a few tests, and he actually says that day, he says to me that he thinks it's just a smudge on the scan, and he says, I don't think this is actually going to be an issue. I says, right, happy days then. So that was all cleared up then, you know, it was grand. He says, now you're not going to be boxing the weekend, he says, because we have to clear this up, it's going to take a couple of days, couple of weeks, whatever. He says, but you'll be boxing again, no problem. So me and Mark Dunlap, we walked out of the room then, and we were hugging each other in Kingsbridge. We looked like two rockets, like. But for a couple of hours, I thought I'd never boxed again. Then I was told I will, so it was like up there. Mate, and see, like, being told that I would, even though the day before I'd never heard of this. We were hugging in the fucking waiting rooms at Kingsbridge. You know, we were going mad, like, and I was brilliant. So that was on the 13th of December. He says, I have this. He says, you'll be all right. I'll clear this up. I'll sign off on it, whatever. He says, but because someone has brought this to my attention, he had to get his colleague to sign off on it. So basically he's saying it's just a formality, but because someone said this, we have to get two people just to agree with me. I says, right, no problem. He says, but he's on holiday, he'll be back next week. And I says, right, that's grand. So I remember he says he'll know by, like he said, by the 20th of December or something. So came Christmas Eve and I still hadn't heard anything. So I rang Mark and I says, Mark, what's the story here? Like, is this dead on? He says, mate, this guy's still on holiday, don't be worrying. He says, whatever. And I says, right, no problem. And then he came to me then on New Year's Eve. Mark came to me and says, no, he says, that other guy didn't agree with that. He says, it is what they thought at the start. He said he didn't want to tell me on Christmas Eve, you know what I mean? So then again, everything just sort of, you know, back to rock bottom then. And then Mark sort of sat me down and he has to think of your health first, you know what I mean? He says, like, the things that they're saying here, you know, it's too dangerous to box or whatever. And listen, I agree with why people might have thought that, but I was never going to think that. I was never going to listen, to be honest, you know. So I sort of says, like, I don't believe that someone can look at a scan. Fair enough if I'd have went there for a specific reason, saying I'm getting these pains or I'm losing balance or maybe symptoms or something.
Yeah.
But this was just a formality. The way I looked at it was, if I didn't turn professional, I didn't do the scan, this would have never been an issue, you know what I mean? So I just sort of says to Mark, like, no, I appreciate you and you're looking out for me. I says, but I'm giving this 100%, like, and he says, well, he's going to stick by me either way, like, he says, but he's always going to obviously be
in the favour of your health.
He's always going to be, but he gave me the go ahead then to attack it, and just sort of do what I can do, like. But I think he sort of half thought I was a bit mad too, like, do you know what I mean? But probably was a bit mad, but I wasn't going to let it. Someone, like I said, that I met for 10-15 minutes, like in a doctor's surgery, say like you can never box again. I don't think that's right, like, you know.
Yeah, and I think like it's even the mental strength that you showed doing that, but obviously if there's something in black and white, it's in black and white. And this actually stopped you from fighting for 2 years. 2 years, yeah. And I can only imagine, like, I'm injured at the minute. I got an operation 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I'm worried about the next 3 months. Do you know what I mean? Them 2 years, and I suppose like it came back with the hole in the heart, and all these things. So there must have been somewhere along those 2 years where you maybe thought that the dream was up, or that maybe you won't, or maybe the chimp in your head, or the self-doubt, or maybe you won't pull through this, or maybe you won't get signed off, or...
Well, that's it. Like, that was my only worry was they would just keep saying no. But like you says there, so what happened then was I was referred to the stroke unit in the Royal Hospital, because obviously they were telling me that I'd taken a stroke. I said, right, and I remember walking in there, it was during COVID, so no one was allowed to come with me, so I went in on my own, and I was looking around. Obviously I saw people taking strokes, and they were all maybe 60, 70 years of age, and you could see them all looking at me, and they were sort of laughing, like, and the nurse came over, and the nurse says to me, like, what's wrong here, like, why are you here, like, you know? And then they were brilliant. Dr. Patterson in the stroke unit, she was the head of the unit, and she, from then, so any sort of self-doubt or anything that I had going into there that day, she cleared it all up, because she told me, she says, Conor, she basically said, I understand what they're saying. They're obviously thinking this is worst case scenario, says, but this is my field. Like, I'll be the one to decide whether or not this would stop you boxing. And she said it won't. He says, because she ran all the tests and she done everything. She says this hasn't came from trauma, because they could tell with the scar tissue or whatever. She says there's no damage to any of that. So it came from the inside. Obviously, you haven't fell and hit your head. Nothing like that's happened. So she says, we'll run the tests. And says, I think it's something crazy, mate. Like 90% of strokes under the age of 25 is from something called the PFO, which is a hole in your heart that everyone's born with. Okay. So that's how you breathe when you're a child, because your lungs aren't working properly. So see, when you're born, everyone has the same hole in the heart. But 70% of people, it closes once their lungs start to sort of be able to help them breathe or whatever. And I'm saying that, like, and I just hearing all this from him. It's like, but
Dr. Quinn.
I know, do you know what I mean? Like, and I says, so I remember she says, like, we'll run through all the tests, just, but if that is the case, you're just going to have to get this surgery. That hole will be closed. It's a simple procedure, and then you can kick on. She says, so, but we'll have to run the test. I remember it was my birthday, the 11th of February, and we were driving up the Hillsborough to stay, me and my girlfriend. Got a phone call, and she actually says to me, like, it's good news, you've got a hole in your heart, you know what I mean? That's how crazy this was, because she knew how much it meant for me to box, but she said if the results weren't conclusive, they couldn't put it down to anything, and then that might stop you boxing, because the boxing board can still say this is where it came or whatever. But so she got back to me and said, no, you do have this hole, this is definitely where it came from, all you do is get that closed. But the only issue is there's normally a 2-year waiting list, and it's COVID now, to get the surgery, and then there's a 6-month period after the surgery of recovery. And so she says it could be a load of years, like she says, but you've been referred to see the consultant for the heart, the heart ward. She says just go in, have a word with him, tell him what the crack is, and he might do something for you. And then I went in there on like the Wednesday. I spoke to him, he agreed, like, you know, didn't want me not able to box again and stuff. He was brilliant as well, Dr. Spence, and he was talking to me, and then he gave me the number of his secretary, and I got on to her, and I think a week later I was in for surgery, like, so you do have a self-doubt and all this, whatever, but when you're talking to the people who are at the top of their field. But see, I think because I was so young, everyone that I was being referred to was sort of like the main person, because they weren't...
It was a huge concern.
Yeah, they were like, what's going on here? Like when I was getting to the hospital and saying my name, the secretary was saying, oh, you're the kid.
Yeah. The child with a stroke.
We never knew you had a stroke. That's what people were saying to me. Like, and I said, no, that's me, like doing the boxer or whatever. I said, fuck's sake. But so I think it was good that obviously I got to see the head of every department, because they were just sort of saying, like, you know, people's getting there to get this hole closed or whatever because they want it closed or because they've been told to get it closed. But I sort of needed it. Like, I couldn't work basically without it, you know. So he closed it, and then from there, then it's just getting all your notes, getting everything sorted, getting more MRIs to make sure there's no changes, and getting the appointments with the boxing board and stuff like that. And still then, until you actually get that license through the door, although I was being told you'll be grand, like there's a guy in the British Boxing Board, Martin Duffy, who came on board and helped me, and he told me from day one, he says, like, he's the guy basically that filters out, so some people might have serious injuries or whatever, and basically before you actually get to like the certain part of the board where they actually determine whether or not you can get your license, he would sort of filter out the ones that can't really, don't have a hope basically. And he said to me from day one, he says, you'll be grand, he says, but it's a waiting game. But even then, like, until you get that license, like, you're still going every day, like, what's going to happen? I was ringing the board every day and torturing them, like, you know. I actually got to the point where I was ringing them like 20 times in a day, and they weren't answering from my number, and then I was ringing them off my mummy's phone and the answer straight away, you know, like but they were doing all the cool, but I just needed to know, you know what I mean, like every day, and it wasn't sleeping the night over this and all. And then obviously then everything sort of was a bit in limp mode, like, are you going to get it, are you not? And then the last Conlan Boxing show, Mark Dunlap got me down to the weigh-in because the British Boxing Board were there, and he introduced me to the guy basically who is the main guy of the British board, and he told him who I was and the story and stuff, and your guy says, aye, but it's all sorted now, isn't it? And Mark says, well, no, it's not really all sorted. He hasn't, you know, like, we haven't got anything to say you've got the license or not. And 10 minutes later I went out and had an email then saying I was awarded the British Boxing Board license. So that was the last Conlan Boxing show, and I'm boxing on this one, you know what I mean? So
it's amazing, isn't it? It's nearly like full circle moment. It's classmate, and it's just even for you to overcome all that and to keep going and to know that you had a goal and a vision. There's not even a brain scan's going to tell you can't do it. Like, to have that in you, like, you're sitting here now, you're 24 years of age. I can't help but think that there's nothing but great things going to come your way, because it's very often, and I listen to the Diary of the CEO, Stephen Bartlett's podcast, and it's very often like successful business people have all went through shit. They're millionaires because of the shit they went through whenever they were. Do you know what I mean? It's these things just happen, and obviously you've used this as ammunition to push on and do well. But like, you made your first fight, your comeback fight. There was a lot of hype. You were on UTV News. There was, you know, your people now talk about you on the road. Do you know what I mean? You are one of those people now, and sometimes that can be a bad thing, but more often it could be a good thing, because it's the type of person you are. It's the type. It's where you're going with your life. It's a lot of it has to do with, I suppose, commercializing yourself in a way, because at the end of the day, it's how you get money in your bank account through sponsorships and stuff. So you sort of have to carry yourself in a certain way, and I suppose having a story like that to back it up is fucking incredible. And all I can say is fair play to you, and I'm proud of you. Like, you know what I mean? It's really nice. But you know, that first comeback fight, obviously it didn't go to plan. You drew, didn't you?
Yeah, I got it.
You drew. And how did that feel? Was it a bit of an anticlimax?
It was. So what happened there? Do you know the story of that fight?
No, I don't.
So that's another one. But Jesus, I mind listening to myself speak now. Jesus, this kid's a nuisance, like, do you know what I mean? But no. So what happened then was Mark Dunlap, my manager, he was putting the show on. TG4 were televising and stuff. It sold 100 odd tickets, whatever. And the day before the weigh-in, my original opponent. So I hadn't been punched in the head in 2 years, because while this was all going on, obviously with the brain scan, I wasn't allowed to box. Not that I wasn't allowed to box, I wasn't allowed to spar, because you didn't want to take any chances. Do you know what I mean? And whatever. So I hadn't been punched in the head in 2 years, and my opponent that I was meant to fight, he was alright. He had a couple of wins, a couple of losses, but he was good active fighter. Mark gave me the option: you could fight this guy who's not bad, he's decent, or you can fight another guy just to get you back in the swing of things. But it's on TV, and I sort of said, like, I want to fight the better guy, and he says, right, that's no problem. But then the day before, he pulled out, and the only other replacement was this other guy from the same place, but he was actually a guy I knew from the amateurs. Me and him were at the World Championships together in the amateurs, and he actually went further than me, so he was top class amateur.
Right.
And then as a professional, he was 7 wins, 2 losses, and 6 wins by knockout.
Right.
And his 2 losses, one was actually seen one of his losses. He was fighting and he fell, and it was Nicaragua, and he fell. The guy knocked him out. No, he was on the ground, and they let it go. And his other one was the WBC world number 1.
Right.
So I went.
So he's not a journeyman.
He's not a journeyman. Do you know what I mean? So I sort of says like, this seems a bit mad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we watched him, and well, we actually weren't going to watch him, but then one of the media outlets, irishboxing.com, put up all the video of all his knockouts. All his knockouts are televised. My mummy actually watched it, and she says, "What is going on here? Like, he's just knocking people dead, like." And it's very nice, but I've done this and that, like, sold all these tickets, whatever, and come in, fought him, and Mark and D and all Peter Graham, all my coaches, and the game plan was just to go out and just keep him on the end of the jab. No, don't be getting involved, because like you said, you haven't been punched in 2 years, and this guy's knocking everyone out, like, so I knew if I boxed him, we would beat him boxing him, but I also, because I remember saying to Mark Dunlop, I says, like, I don't want to win a fight here, but having to like, climb off the canvas in front of my man on the first fight back, no. So he says, just go out and box. And Conlan actually was doing the commentary, and they asked him his prediction before the fight, and he predicted, he says, Conor will win the fight, he says, but he might have to get up off the ground. No, and that's not what you want to hear going into your first fight back, like. So I was sort of, and then I went in with it and thought I was winning handy, like boxing the ears of him. Like, he wasn't getting near me, he wasn't landing nothing heavy, and I was just sort of keeping on the end of a jab, 1-2, and he was just on the ropes moving. I was just coming at him, letting the shots go, and going into the corner, and he was saying, right, handy. And then at the end, Mark, my manager, he says, brilliant. No, he says, no, you've won that every round, like. And the called out referee, Eamon McGill, who I would have considered at that point a friend of mine, know that I've known him years, scores about 39 a draw, and I says, like, this guy who's announcing this has called this out wrong, you know. And but then I looked and I seen Eamon McGill, he just jumped out of the ring. I says, jeez, he's done this, like, you know, he gave it a draw, and the whole place just erupted, like, says, what the fuck. So it was a big anticlimax, because it sort of felt like that sort of to me felt worse than being told, look, it never box again, because I knew when they were telling me that I could change it. Whereas when this guy's give this decision as a draw, like, you know, it's different if it was a draw, you know. Like, I thought it was an easy enough win, to be honest. You know, I've had harder fights in the amateurs, and when they called it as a draw, I sort of went, like, after everything that you've came through, someone can just stand in the middle of the ring and do that. And listen, like, I know, to be fair, the referee has got a lot of stick over this and abuse over this, and I don't want that either, you know what I mean? I can't be annoyed with all that, mate. I just wanted to move on, forget about it, and, you know, and I know a lot of people maybe fell out with him, and because, like he says, I mean, it's a small world, especially in boxing, you know what I mean? It's a small, and a couple of people said to me that, you know, they've seen him, said a few things, and understand people feeling that way, but it's done now, do you know what I mean? It's done now, but it was the sort of last thing I would have expected, like, do you know what I mean?
It's mental, actually. I didn't know all that, to be honest with you, and I didn't know. I heard you get robbed right enough, but I didn't know what the details of how good he was and stuff. That's mental. But again, and something that we spoke about is overcoming these, overcoming the shit, control the controllables, you know, and be a sort of, you know, the master of your own destiny.
Yeah.
And I went to watch your fight after that then, is that right?
Yes, that was after.
Which was 3 weeks ago over in Kirkwood, which was again live in TG Car, and like. Obviously, then I heard about you and I started that coming along, and then I found out that Donard had a, you know, user family and stuff, and I think that, like, even seeing you that night, again, I was going to say I'm not a boxing fan, but I don't know much about boxing in terms of the technicalities of it and stuff. I don't, but I know what it's like I know what it's like to have balls. Do you know what I mean? Because it's the same in any sport, and I know what it's like to have a drive and an ambition, because again, it's the same in any sport. And to see you that night, like the way you just floated about and the way you carried yourself, do you know what I mean? It's very often you meet boxers and you meet different people, and even the way you're sitting there and the way you're talking, it's just that you're so authentic, and so you're just a nice person in a way. You can just tell when after you meet someone, and I think it's very important because a lot of a lot of times whenever people get this sort of wee bit of a win and stuff and they're on TV, they can get it carried away, and that's perfectly natural too, and I get that, but the very fact that you are so grounded and you are, do you know what I mean? It must be very rewarding for your mum even looking in, do you know what I mean? It must be, it's really nice. But the second fight did you feel like it put a few things to bed after the first one, or?
Well, yeah, it did. Yeah. It did. Like, no, there was like that guy fought in the second fight.
By the way, he looked like a tough nut. I was going.
Joe, like he was a guy from England, mate, and
he looked like a child coming in. He's a man.
He was a man, and he had never been stopped before, and he'd fought all the sort of like English prospects at my weight, all the GB lads. Like I was on the Irish team, they were on the GB team, and no one had ever stopped him. So put a few things to bed because I went out to do that, like stop him. No, I went out to do that, like, and it just sort of repaid everyone that's sort of been behind me as well, like you're saying there, mate, about being grounded and stuff, but there's a lot of people around me that
keep you grounded,
keep you, and like, do you know what you're saying there, like for 2 years or like when I wasn't able to box, I was still able to train full time because of my sponsors, and like I have a sponsor in Australia, Bobby Werman from Fastgaff, you'll see it on my shorts and stuff, and like he pays me a wage to basically train, and if it wasn't for him, like I know people say if it wasn't for sponsors, which is true, it is true, but when people are saying that, obviously they're helping them out big time, but genuinely, if it wasn't for Bobby, and obviously my family and friends and stuff, but if it wasn't for him, I couldn't have still been training because I had no other source of income, you know. People say that because you don't get paid much for your fight starting out or whatever, it's all investment and stuff, but I didn't get paid 1 penny for 2 years, you know what I mean, because I wasn't able to fight. So you have people like that around you, and you've got Dee and Sean Crowe, and obviously my family, my girlfriend and my friends, and do you know, like that night there sort of felt like it was repaying Evans back for the 2 years out more than
yourself.
The night that like, do you know what I mean? But so it's absolutely brilliant, mate. Like,
but even just touching on your sponsors and Bobby, and obviously, many sponsors do you have?
Jeez, I have a couple, mate. I've got Bobby from Fastgaff, and then BCM Construction.
Right. Okay.
They're another major one. And then obviously I've got my nutritionist, Pierce Tohill, Sean Crowe, who's
P25 nutrition.
P25, and then Sean Crowe, who is my strength and conditioning coach, but he does that for free. You know, he has a sponsor, like. And then I've just recently got one there, Sean's Mini Market, which is the shop at the bottom of my street, mate. And no, like these people are sponsoring you, and it's big sponsorships, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's
especially the way of the world and stuff now, and you know, and this is what I wanted to say, like, people like Bobby, and we all need Bobbies in our lives, and we all need these people, even the people who are support me, well, let's face it, in terms of me wanting to achieve my dreams, are there. But it's funny because even whenever I first started off the podcast, the sponsors that come in, they weren't sponsoring the podcast to get anything out of their business.
That's right.
Now it's maybe starting to change slightly, but like, then people are investing in you, not the outcome.
That's right.
You as a person, and I think that even shows again what I just touched on, the type of person that you are, and it's testament to you, because there's a lot of people out there who are putting up fucking their own advertisements on their Instagrams and their Facebooks, nearly. If they didn't get an advertising, they'd be fucked. So I think it is testament to you and the type of person you are, and you know, obviously we all need a Bobby in our lives. Do you know what I mean? To keep us going. But I think that maybe you should just give yourself a wee tap in the back, because these people wouldn't be coming into your life and providing these things if they didn't think you were a fucking good person. Forget about the good boxer. Forget about all that. You have a goal and you're a good person. Let's try and support them. But even coming into Saturday night, we're going to the SSE. You coming, Sean?
We'll be
on tour, singing. You're playing. We're going to the SSE anyway. I suppose from that young lad who was told he'd never box again to, you know, having to go through heart surgery, to being told you took a stroke, and now you're going down to the Odyssey, and you're from the Falls, you're going to the Odyssey and fight. Like, I remember even going and watching Martin Rogan and stuff.
Right, brilliant,
do you know, and that's you now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's fucking you, and sorry, I keep cursing today, I don't know what's wrong. that's you, and how does that make you feel?
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, mate. Like, so this Odyssey show, mate, this is obviously a Conlan Boxing show.
Yeah.
Which is their own management company, and I'm managed by Mark Dunlap. And you know, I had Mark tortured. I said him, like, before the last Odyssey show, that I didn't have a license. I said, Mark, what's the chances of getting me on this Odyssey bill? And he said, honey, you don't even have your license yet. But mate, I just always wanted to fight in the Odyssey, and no, thanks to the Mark and thanks to the Conlan Boxing, Jamie and Mick for the opportunity, because it's great to see managers come together. You know,
the best interest of you,
exactly.
rather the best interest of their egos.
That's it, exactly. You know, and a couple of years ago you didn't see that, so for me to be on this show, it just feels amazing. And then obviously you've got Big Potty on it, who's trained by day as well. So one of my teammates, like, and just it'll be amazing. No, I can't wait. Like, I'm a big boxing fan as well, mate. So I'm not only thinking about my fight. I can't wait. I can't wait till my fight's done and then I can watch the fights. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's I was saying the Peter Graham earlier on the phone. I was saying, like, I hope I'm first on, get done, and I'll get a shower and walk in the Odyssey entrance as if I'm just a spectator. Like, do you know what I mean? And just watch the rest of the fights. It'll be amazing.
Who are you fighting?
I'm fighting the guy Stephen Jackson from England. So
what's he like?
He's alright. He would be considered a journeyman in my weight division, but the journeymen in my weight, they're actually, a lot of them are half decent, because you know yourself, like flyweight, you're not going to be knocking around that weight unless you're training hard. So flyweight would be 51 kilos. 51. So you imagine there's not too many people just sitting around 51 kilos. So if you're 51 kilos, you're training. Do you know what I mean? So at least journeymen, a lot of them are fit and strong and they can give you a hard night's work. Do you know what I mean? So we'll see on Saturday night. But I've watched him a few times, and there's times he's good, you know, when he wants to give it a go. Like, and I'm sure he'll come to the Odyssey and he'll see a big arena and a big stage, and he will give it a go. Like, do you know what I mean?
And in terms of you watch them a bit, I talk about this with all the boxers because it's something that I'm a wee bit into in terms of the analytics of it, the analysis, the numbers, what is he going to do, what's his game plan. Do you know all that, or are you just controlling you, or is it a wee bit of both?
No, well, I just sort of control me, because see in boxing, you'll watch, like, you can see one guy and with another guy, and you could be fighting this guy and you say he looks amazing, like but
that's the way he fought against him.
But then you see him in against a different guy, and you're going, Jesus. So listen, it's all different levels, you know. Like, it's like anything. You can see guys are 5-0, 6-0, fighting maybe this guy, and he gives them hard rounds. You know, they win maybe 4-2 or 4-2 on a draw or something, and he's done alright against him. But then you can see a guy maybe 1-0, 2-0 go out and absolutely destroy him, and you know, it's hard to judge. Like, I think boxing nowadays, a lot of people are sort of going down the route of just trying to get as many wins as possible, and listen, no, each to their own. But I don't want to be sitting in 6-7 months time 6-0, but never fought. I never fought anyone decent, or never fought for a title or whatever. So I would send the videos more to D, to be honest, but I would watch a bit of them and then just sort of think, every time I watch someone, I say, but you'll not do that against me, you know what I mean? Like, it's weird, like, you think, like, I be watching the flyweights, and jeez, mate, I'd be thinking I could knock them all dead, you know what I mean? You can't, let's be honest, you can't. But I think I would hit harder than a lot of flyweights. So I think when you look at these guys and they do come to have a go, I think once I hit them 1 or 2 clean shots, like that guy, the last fight there, you know, he came out, he was doing these interviews and he had all these intentions, and his corner were telling him what to do, and as soon as I hit him once, he sort of, he didn't want to know, you know. So that's why I wouldn't really look too much into them, because like I said, it's like at this stage of your career, you shouldn't really be getting too carried away with these types of wins. You know, it's brilliant to get a win, it's brilliant to look good or whatever, but like in my head, I'm expecting to breeze through these fights. You know, this isn't like, I wouldn't be like looking at myself on TV in these fights and going, geez, that's amazing, you know what I mean? I'd be saying, right, that's what I was expected to do, let's move on. So I wouldn't get too pernickety about it.
Too highs with highs or too lows with lows. It's just trying to stay on that thing. Just before we'll finish off here in a second, but you mentioned D there a couple of times, D Waldo Walsh, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I followed him on Instagram the other day in the Let's Face It page, and do you know what? It was actually the night I was at your fights, and I was sitting ringside, so I was right beside the corner.
Yes,
and and just the presence that guy has about him. I know I had Donald in, and we did you watch the one I did with Donald, and they would have talked to him about coaching and stuff, and about being that person, and about like and I suppose them two are probably in the same bracket in terms of the impact that they're making on people within West Belfast. Like, and I was sitting looking at him and the energy that he has to give every single person every single time, and like how much of an impact has he had in your? Because it's worth noting, isn't it? The impact that he has had in your sort of life. Forget about boxing.
I know, massive, mate. Like it says, when I found all this out, Dee was with me when I found out about the brain scan and stuff, and he had the exact same mindset as me, which was amazing, and Big Crew as well. They just says it's not the case, we'll find a way around it, which was amazing, because if I'd had a coach there that maybe says, no, you can't box, it would have been hard for me, and Dee, again, like, he trained me every day for 2 years, and people think that these coaches are getting paid mega money. They only get paid when we fight, and I didn't fight for 2 years, so he's not getting paid, you know what I mean? And obviously, like, we're really good friends as well, like, but like, the investment then that he's put in for 2 years, and the improvements that he's made in me over them 2 years is madness too. Like, when I came back from Australia, I thought I was at a decent level, but like, now I think I'm even levels above that, and that's just from being around Dee every single day. Like, Dee trains me every day without fail. There's never any changes, or even if there's no fights coming up, I would always go up, because we have a real good relationship, and it's not just work all the time. Sometimes I could go up and do 2 hours of training with Dee, and maybe talking for an hour, like, do you know what I mean? So obviously, if you have a fight coming up, that's not the case, but no, like, the impact he has on me and the whole camp, Owen O'Neill, Colin Murphy, and Paddy, and Lee Reeves, Jared Hughes, there's a load of pros there now. And
by the way, just touching on that, Owen O'Neill.
Jeez,
never seen anything like it.
Madness, isn't it? I know.
I'd love to talk to him. I'd love to talk to others. I'd love to talk to Dave. Come up to one of these ones. I know.
Go up and watch the session, but no, like, I was some knockout, wasn't it?
It was amazing. I've never seen anything like it. It was actually scary. It was scary. But and even just like Dee Walsh, and I think that it is important to a wee bit like the Barry
Rooney,
the sponsor.
Oh, Bobby, sorry, Barry Rooney's the other corner man.
A wee bit like Bobby. We all need a D and a Bobby, and all these people who are going to make us the way we are. Like, and Mick Conlan always says it, and he done an interview with BBC during the week there, and he says, "No, I'm going to be world champion. It's just a matter of time." Yeah. He's someone who, in my eyes, the goal setting and visualization and stuff like that. What's the end? Obviously, you're going to say you're going to be a world champion, but what is the? Give me a time frame. Give me something. Give me what's your goals or ambitions with, I suppose, short term and long term, or do you have any at the minute? Or?
No, definitely. Short term, really short term, to win Saturday night, obviously. Like, short term goals for me is in the next year would be titles, like British title, Commonwealth title. Which in my weight division is very realistic, because there's not many about. So that is the goal, and then obviously world titles is the main goal, but not just one. Like, I want to win different weights, like down around my weight, you flyweight, super flyweight, bantamweight, there's only a kilo between each weight.
Right, okay.
So I want
to litre of water in it.
Yeah, that's what it is, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, one day you're a flyweight, the next day you're a super fly. So
wish I had that problem.
You know what I mean? But that's the goal for me. It would be to win different titles in different divisions, world titles, and do it a bit different. Like, obviously it's a process to get there, but once I get there, I would just love to be one of them guys that, right, you're world champion now, you've nothing to lose, fight everyone and anyone, and just go for it all, do you know what I mean? Like, because I feel like, see, when you're from West Belfast, or Belfast in general, see, if you win a world title, you're world champion the rest of your life, do you know what I mean? So you may as well put it all on the line every time. Look at Big Paddy, like, he's world champion now, and that was only a couple of weeks ago, and straight away he's fighting here on Saturday night. Like, no one else would do that, like, do you know what I mean? And then he'll probably fight January, February again, so like, he's looking at it the same way I would look at it. Like, what have you got to lose? When you're world champion, you're world champion, you know what I mean? Yeah.
And you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That's
so
it, exactly.
Go for it. Like, but no, Conor, it was amazing having you on it. I could actually sit and talk to you for an hour. I really mean that. You're just so, like, every now and again you just meet these people, do you know what I mean? They have a presence, and I said that earlier on, I think, about to have the presence and have this way about you, and you have that. And something that I've been told too, even in terms of me with hurling and stuff like that, is you have to use that too, because at the end of the day, after this, you know what I mean, you're going to put the gloves down, and there's going to be something after in terms of your career and your life or whatever. Hopefully you'll not be searching for money too much for the success that you're going to have within the ring, but I think all this stuff will stand to you. Your journey will stand to you, and the things that you've been through. And I'll just leave you, I suppose, with, because we are the similar age, that did I tell you about Jimmy Carr? Did I talk about Jimmy Carr in this podcast? No. About the Darius CEO, I mentioned that, didn't I? Stephen Bartlett and stuff. And Jimmy Carr actually said, and I've talked about it before in this podcast, he said the first 20 odd years of his life was pretty shit. And say on average we live until we're 80.
Right.
He was like, so what's a quarter of my life was shit, so am I going to let the next 3 quarters be dictated by the first quarter, or am I going to use the first quarter as ammunition to push on and make something of myself for the next 3 quarters? And it's something that we can put into both of our lives, and with the setbacks and stuff that you've had, and like honestly, the world's your oyster, and I wish you every bit of luck and success in the future. So thanks very much, mate.
Thank you.
And a huge thanks to everybody for tuning in this week again for our bonus episode, and a big shout out to Mick Conlan, Jamie Conlan and the Conlan Boxing crew for sponsoring this bonus episode. There's still tickets available to go to the Odyssey and watch the fight. I think there's very few tickets, but there still is tickets available. I'm going. Should be a great night. Really looking forward to obviously Mick fighting, but people like Conor and Paddy McCrory and Sean McComb and all these people who are, West Belfast, born and bred. I think we all need to get out and support them and really support our boxers, because they are role models for people within our society. There's enough people out there who are struggling, and there's enough people getting it tight. So all we have to do is maybe sometimes look up and see how well other people around us are doing, and it'll give us motivation to push on and to try and make something of ourselves. So yeah, thanks very much to Conlan Boxing, and just another reminder about our live event in January too. Sean will throw the link below. But yeah, thanks very much, and I will see you all on. Still one out on Sunday. No, I'll see you all soon. Thank you.